Good evening. Tonight we're going to start with lesson 26 in our fraction unit. I can compare fractions greater than 1 by reasoning about benchmark fractions. Okay, so we're going back to those good old number lines and placing those benchmarks on there. And so we're going to get started with this. All right, we're going to plot the following points on the number line without measuring. So we're not having to actually sit here and make all sorts of number lines to represent 2 and 1/6, 3 and 3/4, and 33/9. So we're just going to kind of place them on there to see if we can get an idea of where they would live on the number line. So let's look at 2 and 1/6. Well, we know it's after 2. So we're going to split this number line into 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And because the 3 would be 6, 6. And where would that live? That would live right about here. That's where 2 and 1/6 would go. Now what about 3 and 3/4? Well, we know 3 and 3/4 is going to land between 3 and 4 because it's after the whole of 3 and we have 3/4. So let's cut this into fourths. 1, 2, 3, and the 4 would be 4/4. So where would that live? Well, that would live right here. So this is 3 and 3/4. So now 33/9. Well, we have to convert 33/9 into a mixed number. So let's do that. We have 9/9, that's a whole. 9/9. Right now we have 18/9. Another 9/9 would give us 27/9. So we do not have enough for another 9/9 because that would be 36/9 and we don't have enough. But how much do we have left over? Well, we have 6/9 left over. So basically, that would give us 3 wholes and 6/9. All right, so where would 3 and 6/9 be? Well, that gets a little confusing because it's going to be between 3 and 4, just like 3 and 3/4 were. So now we actually have to cut this up now into 9ths. So I just cut up this section now into 9ths. Okay, so now where would 3 and 6/9 be placed? Well, here we have 3 and 1/6. I'm sorry, 3 and 1/9, 2/9, 3/9, 4/9, 5/9, 6/9. So 3 and 6/9 is basically going to live right here. So this is 3 and 6/9. So now we can actually see, because over here is 2 and 1/6, we have 3 and 6/9 and 3 and 3/4. Now remember, the numbers that are down this way are greater than the numbers down this way. So now we could just look at this number line and be able to make our comparisons down here of who is greater and who is less than. So let's look at this. We've got 33/9, which is greater, because that's 3 and 6/9, greater than 2 and 1/6. So we are going to place the greater sign towards 33/9, because that's 3 and 6/9, which is greater than 2 and 1/6. But then what about 33/9 is greater than, less than, or equal to 3 and 3/4? Well, over here, 3 and 3/4 is closest to the greater whole, which is 4, and this is a little bit less than. So just by looking, we can make our comparison and say 3 and 3/4 is greater than 33/9. All right, compare the fraction below by writing greater than, less than, or equal to. 5 and 1/3 is greater than, less than, or equal to 5 and 3/4. All right, so just by looking at the wholes, we can see that these are equal so far because this is a 5 wholes and this has 5 wholes. So now we have to depend on looking at the fraction because the whole number is not going to help us. So if I just quickly drew a number line and put it between 5, because it's after 5 wholes and before 6 wholes, and I just split this up into fourths. 5 and 3/4 would live right here. Okay? And now, if I split this up into thirds, 5 and 1/3 would live right about here. So just by looking at them, who is greater? 5 and 3/4 is greater than 5 and 1/3. Compare the fraction below by writing greater than, less than, or equal to. So we have 23/10 is greater than, less than, or equal to 28. So we have them into improper fractions, fractions greater than 1. So we have to make them into mixed numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 23/10 and break this down to give us a mixed number. So we've got one whole, that's 10, plus another whole, that would give us 20/10. We don't have enough to make another, so we're left with 3/10. So this is 2 wholes and 3/10. So 23/10 is really equal to 2 and 3/10. So now we have 28. So now I'm going to do, just like we did in the previous lesson, I'm going to show you another way that we can break this down into a mixed number. Now remember, when I showed you in previous video, 2, we can multiply 2. We can have 20, we have 28s, okay? So let's take this down, and 28s, we can actually write 16, you break it apart, 16/8 plus 4/8, okay, would give us 28. Now let's look at this. How many wholes do you see with 16 and 8? There are 2 wholes, 16 over 8. So now we can actually go and say 2 wholes plus 4/8 would give us 2 and 4/8. So this one is equal to 2 and 4/8. But like I always tell you, make sure you're reducing. 4/8 gets reduced by, because we're dividing the top and the bottom by 4, 2 and a half. So if we look at 2 and 3/10 and 2 and a half, we know the whole is the same, so that doesn't help us. But the half is greater than 3/10. So automatically 28 is larger than 23/10. All right, in our next one, compare the fraction below by writing greater, less than, or equal to. So we have 2 and 2/5 is greater than, less than, or equal to 2 and 1/4. So guys, you can use any strategy that we have learned thus far by breaking these down and comparing them. What I'd like you to see is that we can turn these into improper fractions or fractions greater than 1. We can find a common denominator, a common unit. But let's try breaking these down. All right, so let's look at this. 2 and 2/5 and 2 and 1/4. Now let's just look at the fraction. We can break this down by just looking at the fraction. We cannot going to look at the whole, because the whole doesn't help us because they both have a 2. 2/5 and 1/4. Now 2/5 is greater to being the next whole than 1/4 would be. So this automatically makes 2 and 2/5 greater than 2 and 1/4. This is more closer to being 3 wholes than this one. So therefore we could say 2 and 2/5 is greater than 2 and 1/4. All right, we're going to continue to compare the fractions below by making comparisons of greater than, less than, or equal to. And the first one we see here is 12/4 is greater than, less than, or equal to 25/8. So if we look at 12/4, how many wholes can we pull out of here? Well, we can pull out 3 wholes. And look over here, 25/8. How many wholes can we pull out here? Well, there is 8/8 plus 8/8 plus 8/8 gives us 24/8, and 1 extra eighth to give us 25/8, right? So basically, right here, we have 3 wholes and 1/8. So who is automatically greater is 3 and 1/8. close. This one is just 3 holes. This is 3 holes plus an eighth. So we know that 3 1/8 is greater than 3. Play like a champion today. Good luck, guys. And may the force be with you. All right, this is a doozy. This is going to take you a little bit of time, so get that paper out and pencil and create that number line and plot 65/8, 8 5/6, and 29/4 on the number line. And then I want you to compare 8 5/6 and 65/8. And I want to see your work tomorrow. This is going to be a big problem that's going to take you some time, just like it did for me in the beginning of this lesson. So compare and show me your work tomorrow. Okay, using that number line that you created, compare 29/4 and 65/8. Just look at that number line and see where they're plotted on the number line, and then you can figure out who's greater, less than, or equal to. And of course, I want to see your work tomorrow. Compare the fraction below by greater, less than, or equal to. 23/10 is greater than, less than, or equal to 28. All right, so let's try to break these down by finding the holes in these and comparing them that way. And I want to see your work tomorrow. And last one, 18/6, greater than, less than, or equal to 17/4. Break them down, find out how many holes are in each, and that will help you solve this. Bring in your work tomorrow. Hey, that force was very strong with you, 4th graders. I feel that success is with you. So go and get it. Keep practicing and doing your best. Have a wonderful night.